Hey everyone, we're going to talk about the true secret to any service-based business that wants to scale. And in reality, it is leadership. So, welcome to the J Rendina podcast, where we want to cut the learning curve for anyone who has a service-based business. My passion is small business, and I want to help deliver value. Our purpose of this podcast is to help build communities that raise the standard of small business because there's a lot of crap out there, and we need to change that. Small business is everything, so we're here to change that. So thank you for watching. And if you get any value, please share, comment, like. We want to grow the show. We want to help as many people as possible. So thank you for that. So right now, leadership is my favorite topic. And truthfully, I think it's crucial for anyone going into business. Even if you're just starting on your own, you have to learn how to lead yourself. So leadership is everything. There's a lot of people out there that are really good leadership teachers, and we'll touch a little bit about them, but we really want to talk about the topic of leadership and how you need to do it in your life and in your business to make sure you're successful. So one thing I've heard, and this is a really interesting story, is the law of the lid. This is John Maxwell, who is a master in leadership teaching. He actually was a pastor at first, which is interesting, and then he went and became a leadership coach. And now he's like one of the best leadership coaches in the world, honestly. He has like hundreds of books published. So if you really want to learn from him, John Maxwell, I can't recommend him enough. But one thing he talked about is the law of the lid. And what does that mean? That means if you're not growing as a person, you're not going to be able to grow your organization. And it sounds funny because it's like, oh, I have to focus on myself to grow my organization. It's true. You are the front runner there, and you have to consistently be addicted to growth to make sure that your company is growing. There's an interesting story with fleas, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard the story, but I'm going to re-say it. Fleas have like a jump height that's 300 times their body weight. Like they could jump 300 times higher than the way they're weighted. So they could jump super high. Now, what happens when you get a bunch of fleas and you put them in a jar and you close the lid? They start jumping, and they hit the lid. So eventually, that lid is their limit. Now, the interesting thing is when you take that lid off, they will only jump to the height of that lid still because they think it's still there. So you train them to say that this is your lid. And that's the law of the lid in essence, where if you put a lid on yourself, that's as high as you're going to go. You have to consistently raise that lid as a owner, as a leader, as a person to make sure you keep growing, period. I think that's an interesting story, and I think it's true too. So check it out. The key to that, though, is you are the lid of your business. Always. No matter what you do, you are that lid. So how are you devoting time to yourself to grow? Because if you're not, then your business will not. So there's a story I also heard, and if you guys haven't read Extreme Ownership, which is another interesting thing about leadership. And I say these stories because stories is really what lets it sink in your mind, right? And if you haven't read Extreme Ownership, I 100% think you have to. There's one story. These guys are in the Navy SEALs, and they have to control these boats, and they have to lift them overhead. They have to run with them. They have to swim with them, whatever. And during the process, there was one crew that was ahead of the other. I think it was boat crew 2 versus boat crew 6. So one was first place, one was last place. And what they did, what the instructors did, the platoon commanders were like, you know what? The leader in boat crew 6 is saying that it's his team. His team's not performing. They're the shortest guys. They're the weakest guys. They don't have the best output. Let's switch him, the leader, the last group, with the first group leader and see what happens. Now, the crazy thing is, slowly that last place group, the boat crew 6, actually started to come up the chain. It was in second place to boat crew 2. So what does that tell you? It's all about the leader. It's all about leadership. How is that person bringing what they know, what they have, to help develop the company and develop people? My first job at a PT school, I was with and I still value this owner of this PT company because he was a great leader. He was very poised. He showed up. He delivered a message, delivered a vision. And I learned a lot from that. But prior to me starting Iron Health, I was like, this is a guy I can follow. And it was because of the way he showed up as a leader. He held me accountable. He did certain things to me that I didn't like necessarily because I was so young, but that's what it takes to be a leader. And I know right now I still have a great relationship with him. And it's important to be a leader that is respected, right? Period. And I learned so much from him. Now take that into retrospect of my second job where I worked for a leader who just didn't give a shit. And he just cared about the business. He didn't care about the people. He didn't develop people. He didn't spend time with us. And I remember just being like, damn, this is some way I don't want to be. I don't want my people to think of me as a complete absentee owner who only cares about the bottom line and doesn't care if I come and go. And I don't have accountability. It was just a free for all. It was ran by fear. Now I say these two stories to give a contrast of a leader who was ran by love and accountability and strength versus a leader who ran by fear and just not caring. It's a big difference. You want to make sure you're the leader who is showing up for people. It doesn't necessarily always mean that people are going to like you. That's very important to put it out there. Leadership is hard, and I say it all the time. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to go through some hard times because you have to hold people accountable, and nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be held accountable. So my goal is really to be like my first leader in the business, and again, I still respect him and still talk to him. So it's important. Show up for your people, hold them accountable, consistently learn and consistently push the boundaries and keep developing. So what are some steps for you to focus on as a leader? We're going to go through some basic things. One is commit to leadership development. What does this mean? Make growth your number one driver. And it could be personal growth. Like I said before, the law of the lid. If you're not developing as a person, you're not going to develop your people underneath you. How can you develop people underneath you if you're not looking at your behaviors, your thoughts, your mindset, and saying, hey, I could be better X, Y, and Z. And you spend time on that development. You need to make sure you're developing yourself, right? It's funny. It's like, oh, I have to grow as a person to make sure my company grows. Yes, they go hand in hand. You are that lid. You have to consistently push yourself. I would even say you have to be addicted to growth. If you want to be a leader, you have to be addicted to growth, period. And you're going to see transitions. It's something to take into account. Like as you grow as a person, some people are going to go off the bus, and that's normal because a lot of people don't like change, or they don't like the way you're growing, or they can't handle growth, or they can't handle change. Just understand that that's a part of it. The second part of that one is you need to be ahead of your staff to lead them. If you're not focused on being the tip of the spear and consistently developing or learning new things or reading or listening to podcasts and YouTube, how do you expect your staff to grow? All their growth comes from you growing first because you're going to bring that down the chain. So it's so important to make sure that you're outgrowing them, or I wouldn't say outgrowing. Make sure that you're leading the front in growth. Lead by example there, and then they will follow. Another part of committing is seek experts, coaches, and peers to further along the journey than you. In my experience, yes, there are some assholes out there, but for the most part, a lot of people are here to help you. They want to make sure you're growing too. So if you find someone who's ahead of you in the journey, let's say you want to open a small service-based business, someone like myself who has 4, you can reach out to me and I would be gladly to help you because I've been where you are. And it's important to have those people to lean on, to learn from, because if you don't have those people, like then you're just learning on your own. Like you can cut the learning curve, and sometimes you have to pay for it too. Like I pay for coaches all the time. Super important to do that because you need to cut that curve and develop and lead by example, right? Make sure you're fully leading by example. If your core values are to have ownership, you're owning everything, right? You have to stick to that. You can't just say something and then do something else. You have to be the example for everyone. And then you can make your decisions based on that. The second part of leadership development is empower others and hold them to standards. It took me a while to realize this too. Like you have to give tasks to other people to see how they do. And then you have to also hold them to certain standards. Because people rise to the level of the standards. Well, actually, I should say people fall to the level of the standards. If you're allowing people to get away with certain things, they're going to keep getting away with things. Your standards have to be so high that people are like, damn, this sucks to almost work for this person. But hey, it's a part of it. If you want to be a true leader, sometimes it happens. Empowering others is super important too, right? For example, in my business, when I have a task for someone, I will just give it to them and let them run with it and see what happens. It is their job. I don't want them to look at me for answers. Yes, I will give an answer if they need it, but I want to empower people to make decisions. It's super important that they have to feel a part of the decision-making process. So empower people underneath you to make decisions. You can't do this alone. That's an important factor here. And even when you're starting off and you have no clients, no relationships, you still need help from someone who's been there. You need help from clients. Like, you're never doing this alone. So never go into it with like a selfish mentality or a lone wolf mentality. Like, you need a team. You need a full team to execute on what you need to do. That is a big part of leadership. Pour into others all the time, even if they leave you. This is an important aspect too. One of our values is really pour into others at Iron Health. And honestly, it's a life value. Like, I always want to give value to people and pour into them, even if it's a short relationship, because that's just a part of who I am. And I think it's important. Like, and I think it's important in business too, because people will leave you. And you rather have a relationship where they respect you for how you help them grow than a relationship that's filled with resentment. So always be pouring into people. And the last point here, lead yourself. I know we spoke about it before, but we're going to dive into it again. Leading yourself is a skill that needs to be fostered. So how do you do that? You track your time, you develop your skills, you read books. You need to consistently develop yourself. And I said it before, and I'll say it again till the horse is dead here. If you're not reading, if you're not listening to YouTube, if you're not expanding your knowledge base, you're staying in a stagnant line. You need to be consistently growing all the time. They say if you're not growing, you're dying. And it comes down to this as well. If you're not consistently fostering your leadership ability, how you communicate, how you say things, how you lead people below you, it's never going to work, because everyone's looking to you to follow you, especially if you're going to start your own business. You have to be that way. A couple other ways you can lead your life. Routines. Like, make sure you stick to your own routines. I know it's funny, like, but if you have a snooze, don't hit the snooze in the morning. It's important. Like, you're keeping promises to yourself. You're leading yourself. You want to exercise, right? And you want to make sure you're making decisions with a clear mind rather than quick or reactionary. That's how you lead yourself. So in summary here, you want to commit to leadership development, empower others, your staff, your clients, anyone around you, and then lead yourself. All right, guys, if you like this content, thank you for watching, but can you like, follow, or give us a share? We want to grow this show. It really means a lot to us. We want to deliver value to as many people as possible. Thank you.